All right, so the White House just made a really big move on artificial intelligence. They're framing this whole thing as a critical battle in a global tech race. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what this new executive order means and why the people behind it are saying it is so important. And this quote from Senator Ted Cruz, it really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The way this announcement was framed, it wasn't just about some new cool tech. No, it's about a high-stakes, winner-take-all race for the future. So what is the big idea here? Well, President Trump announced an executive order, and it has one primary goal: to create a single national rulebook for how AI gets approved and regulated across the entire United States. Now, the whole argument from the people who support this is pretty straightforward. They're saying that without this kind of federal action, the American AI industry, which they're calling the biggest industry anyone's ever seen, well, it just can't compete globally. The big fear is that this tangled mess of different state and local rules could completely stop innovation dead in its tracks. Okay, so what is the specific problem that this executive order is really trying to solve? Well, it all comes down to the current regulatory landscape, how things are being handled across the country right now. Okay, get this. According to David Sachs, who's been called the administration's AI czar, there are over 1,000 different bills related to AI making their way through state legislatures right now. Just think about that. That's a staggering number of new rules for any company to try and keep track of. So the picture that the speakers painted was one of, frankly, regulatory chaos. You've got 50 states, and they could all be running in 50 completely different directions. And they argue that this just creates this fragmented, super confusing environment for anyone, developers, businesses, trying to operate across the country. So the bottom line is pretty clear. They're saying this patchwork of laws makes it almost impossible for companies to operate effectively. The argument is simple. If this industry is going to thrive, it needs one unified set of rules. And that is the entire idea behind creating a single federal standard. Okay, so that's the problem they've laid out. How exactly does this executive order plan to fix it? Let's dive into the solution. This really breaks it down. The whole idea is to shift from that before scenario, that messy patchwork of over 1,000 different bills, to the after scenario, one single, clear national framework, a single source for approval. It's really all about replacing that confusion with some clarity. But, and this is a really key point, this isn't about just getting rid of all state rules. The administration was pretty clear that important regulations, especially in areas like child safety, would still be protected. The real target is what they're calling onerous regulations. The kind of rules that are so burdensome they could actually slow down the entire country's progress in AI. So, why the big push for such a major policy shift? Well, the justification was all framed as this high-stakes global race, one with massive economic and, yes, even ideological consequences. Now, to make their case, the speakers took everyone back to the 1990s and the dawn of the internet. They pointed to what happened then. The Clinton administration went for a light touch when it came to regulation, while the European Union went with a much more heavy-handed strategy. And that contrast? It's absolutely central to their entire argument today. And the result of that light touch approach? Well, they claim it's a big reason why the American economy is now over 50% larger than Europe's, with tech being a huge driver of that growth. The implication is crystal clear. We are facing that exact same kind of strategic choice right now with AI. And they made this point really emphatically. This isn't a race where you can come in second place. They're framing it as a pass/fail test for the country's leadership. And the main competitor is China. The message couldn't be clearer. America has the lead right now, and this executive order is all about making sure we keep it. But the argument went even deeper than just economics. It was framed as a battle of values. The goal, they said, isn't just to build the most powerful AI. It's to make sure that AI is built on a foundation of American values, things like individual liberty and free speech. And that stands in really stark contrast to what they described as China's model, which is all about surveillance and centralized control. Okay, so with all this intense focus on winning the race and just the sheer power of the technology we're talking about, it all led to a really direct and pretty critical question from a reporter at the event. And this question, it really just cuts right to the core of the entire AI debate, doesn't it? It perfectly highlights that fundamental tension. On one hand, you have the pressure to win this race at all costs. And on the other, you have the potentially huge risks this technology poses to, well, all of us. The president's answer was just one word: both. And that's kind of fascinating, right? It's a really stark admission that these two massive things are happening at the exact same time. This high-stakes race against China and the rise of a technology that could, potentially, pose a threat to humanity itself. And that really leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is it even possible to win the race without losing control?